All right, Rick, so you and I both have journalism degrees. We won't argue of who went to the better school now, but what is the state of journalism? Where are we at today?
Well, but let me just say, Minnesota, Minnesota.
Purdue.
Go
It's
Gophers.
cool.
Okay, both Big Ten schools, by the
Go
way.
Boilers.
You know, this is really the right time and the right question. And it has a lot to do with what Larry was just referring to, the state of journalism. Larry and I both worked at CNN, and I challenged him a little bit on what CNN's role is today or what its perceived role is. But maybe as somebody who now works here, and by the way, I've never had a chance to welcome you officially, but we're so glad you're here. There it is. Maybe now, Faran, we look at it from a global perspective, and it's not like I want to be critical of my colleagues. I have dear friends who work at CNN, who I still talk to this day. I have dear friends who work at Fox News and at NBC. I worked at all three places, and like you, I worked in local, and I understand what it's like to really get the foundation of what it is that we're supposed to do. Here's the problem. Here's the problem that we have today, and I hope I can make people at home understand this. The problem with journalism today, and I know it's kind of sloganeering, is when we say it is time to do news again, and when we say that we should question more, it's not just a slogan. It's really true. And I'm going to bring it to life with the stories that we're talking about now. Let's take the impeachment of the president, right? Obviously, the president either did something very corrupt or very stupid when he went to a foreign leader and asked him for a favor. He probably should not have done that. Is it impeachable? I don't know. It's up to people smarter than me and who are sitting in the right seats to make that decision. But what's the next question, right? Because the Dems, for example, are making a huge deal out of this Ukraine thing. Can I ask you a question that I think the average person at home would ask themselves? Who's closer to Ukraine, the United States or Russia?
Russia.
Thank you.
On a map, yes.
Who's closer to the South China Sea, China or the United States?
China.
Yeah. Who's closer to, let's say, Venezuela, South America or the United States?
South America.
The questions that we need to start asking ourselves as American journalists is to look at these situations, these stories from a global perspective, and we don't do that. And it's frustrating because maybe when you get to work in a place like this, you start asking those questions, because the foundational question, as my friend Chris Hedges said yesterday on the air, Pulitzer Prize winner, New York Times reporter, probably one of the best writers in our country, when it comes to this kind of thing is, do we cover a story superficially and just say, oh my God, look what the president may have done? Or do we say, but wait a minute, didn't George Bush instigate a war that ended up in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people? Didn't Barack Obama use drone warfare to essentially kill an American citizen without due process? Why weren't those questionable actions that should have been impeached as well? So when you stretch beyond just the paradigm of the story you're dealing with and you start asking other questions, then you realize that that's real journalism. My problem with journalists in America today, my dear colleagues who I very much respect for their work, is they've put themselves in this bubble, right? And they don't go outside of that box to ask other questions that may give us a better understanding of why some of the things that we're doing may be right or may be wrong.
And I will tell you, Rick, as a friend and a colleague, I've never asked you what side of the political spectrum you're on, but the beauty that I love, and it's that true form of journalism, every single night I can't tell. There's nights where I'm like, oh, he's probably a Republican. And then there's nights where I'm like, oh, he's definitely a total liberal. But then there's times where I'm like, I just don't know. And you know what?
That's what we're supposed to be.
That is how it's supposed to be. And that's one of the things that I will say is when you, but at the same time, these cable news networks, for example, like Fox, where they're gonna lean towards those Republicans because that's what they want to hear.
Exactly.
Because they're thinking that's money. But I feel like people are a little woke now. And it's like, you know what, just give me the news straight. And that's what I feel exactly like what you do, because people don't want to have their leanings and their spins on it. It's just real news.
And it comes with, first of all, you do need to have, I believe, and this is, you know, my particular bias, I think somebody on television should have a foundation of what journalism is. Journalism, like medicine and like law and like everything else, comes with some foundational elements that have to do with a bevy of things that we all understand. And I think that's important. The other thing that matters is experience. That's why, I mean, sitting down and talking with a guy like Larry King, sitting down and talking with someone like Chris Hedges.
Legends.
That's foundational experience. That tells you the way journalists are supposed to behave. And unfortunately, what we see today in journalism is a bias toward a specific ideology, and oftentimes even a bias toward a particular politics. And that is not good for any democracy. And I think when Larry said, and you just heard him say it, and obviously nobody puts words in Larry King's mouth, right? When he says it's unbelievable that you have to go to RT to find out what's really going on when it comes to news.
That says a lot.
It says a lot, and it should make us feel good, but we're only as good as what we're going to do tonight.
Right.
Because yesterday doesn't matter anymore, and that's what drives us. And tonight when I have my conversation with Larry King about politics, it'll be interesting to hear what he thinks is going to happen and how this is going to play out, and that's what's coming up tonight on the News with Rick Sanchez.
We're at 3 and 5 p.m. Thanks so much, Rick, a friend and colleague and a scholar. Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.